Real estate. It's certainly rewarding as well as challenging, and I think I'm here today to talk about one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle when you're dealing with borrowers and sometimes sellers, which is the mortgage process. I'm going to take a second. If you flip the page, you're going to see something called the perfect loan file. And I'm actually going to read this verbatim because this is probably one of the most important documents and thought processes that you guys could perhaps get. How many people think that we had a mortgage crisis? We had a mortgage crisis, folks, and what did that do to the mortgage industry? Anybody got an idea? Turned it upside down. In foreclosures. Is it easier to get a loan nowadays? This is what this document's about, and I'd recommend that you keep it because when you're working with borrowers, there's a good chance the borrower had actually bought their home or taken out their mortgage prior to the mortgage crisis, and they're used to zippy zoom. We go in, get the loan, here's your keys, and you're out of there, and it's changed just a little bit. So real quickly, I'll read through the perfect loan file. The media has it all wrong. Securing mortgage approval and satisfying credit underwriting guidelines are not the difficulties plaguing mortgage consumers. It's in meeting the rigorous documentation requirements that most people fall flat. The good news is the fix is simple. Just scan, photocopy, fax, and deliver every aspect of your financial life. Then shortly before closing, check everything again. Mortgage consumers enter the mortgage approval process ready to battle their chosen mortgage lender will come out with a nightmare story to tell, and I stress those people that are ready to battle their mortgage lender. As the process requirements and guidelines are the same for everybody, your mindset is the game changer. Accepting the redundant documentation necessary for lender approval will make everyone's life easier. When I was a kid, my father occasionally issued directives that I naturally thought were superfluous, and when asked why I needed to do whatever it was he wanted me to do, his answer was often, because I said so. This to address my query that always left me without a retort, and I would usually comply. This is exactly what consumers should do during the mortgage approval process. When your lender requests what seems to be over documentation and you wonder why you need it, accept the simple edict, because I said so. You will find the mortgage approval process much less frustrating. So what's the perfect loan? Well, it's one that A, pays back the lender, and B, pays back the lender on time. Underwriting the perfect loan is not the goal that mortgage lenders aspire to today. The real goal is the perfect loan file. Mortgage lenders have suffered staggering losses and gone out of business because of the dreaded loan repurchase. As mortgage delinquencies increased, Fannie and Freddie began to audit mortgage loans they had purchased and discovered substandard and fraudulent underwriting practices that violated representations and warranties made, stating these were high-quality loans. Fannie and Freddie began forcing the originating lenders of these bad loans to buy them back. So a small correspondent mortgage lender is forced to buy back a single mortgage loan in the amount of $250,000. This becomes a $250,000 loss to a small mortgage business for a single loan because it will never be repaid. It doesn't take many of these bad buybacks to close the doors on many small mortgage operations. The lending houses suffered billions of dollars of losses repurchasing loans from Fannie and Freddie, and began to do the same things for loans that they had purchased from smaller originators. The small and medium-sized mortgage originators that survived created underwriting guidelines and procedures to eliminate the threat of future loan repurchase losses. The answer? The perfect loan file. It's no longer necessary to have excellent credit, a big down payment, stable employment with income sufficient to support your debt service to guarantee your loan approval. However, you must have a borrower profile that meets the credit underwriting guidelines for the loan you're requesting, and more importantly, you have to be able to hard copy guideline document your profile. Every nook and cranny of your financial life has to be corroborated, double and triple checked, and reviewed again before closing. This way, if the originating lender has created a loan file that is exactly consistent with published underwriting guidelines and has documented while adhering to those guidelines, the chances are that your loan will not be subject to repurchase. Borrowers also need to prepare for processing and underwriting. Processors and underwriters are the people trained and charged with gathering, those are the processors, all of your required for approval financial documents, and then approving people, those are the underwriters, who approve your loan. You can assume these people are well trained and very experienced as they are tasked with assembling and approving a high quality, these people will pay us back loan file. But just how do they go about doing that? The process begins with the filter, who's the loan originator, otherwise known as loan officer, mortgage consultant, mortgage advisor, etc., tasked to match the qualifications of a particular mortgage deal to the appropriate underwriting guidelines. It is the filter's job to determine if a loan scenario is approvable and to gather the documentation to support the determination. It's here at the beginning of the approval process where the deal is made or broken. The rest of the approval process is just papering the file. The filter, otherwise known as loan officer, determines whether the information provided by the borrower can be validated and documented. This is simple since most mortgages are approved by automated underwriting engines such as Desktop Underwriter, and the automated approval generates a list of documents needed to paper the loan file. An underwriter can, at this stage, request additional supporting documentation evidence at their discretion, as not all circumstances neatly fit into the prescribed underwriting box. If the loan officer creates a loan file with accurate information, then secures the documentation resulting from the automated underwriting approval findings, the loan will close uneventfully. So let's begin with the pre-approval call. Mortgage pre-approval is typically accomplished with a telephone interview. Prospective borrower calls a mortgage rep and the questions begin. There'll be a lot of questions as this critical phase of the process is akin to the discovery period in a trial. You'll need to disclose everything. Expect to answer queries on what you do for a living, how long you've been employed in your current field, and what your salary is. If there's a co-borrower, they'll have to answer the same questions. Every dollar in checking, savings, investments, and retirement accounts, also known as assets to close, as well as gifts from relatives and nonprofit grants, have to be accounted for. Essentially everything appearing on a borrower's asset radar screen has to be documented and explained. If you were previously a homeowner and sold your home in a short sale, or if you own a home now and plan to keep it as an investment or a rental property, there are new and specific underwriting guidelines created just for you. In these cases, full disclosure of your credit and homeownership past can potentially eliminate unforeseen mortgage approval woes. For instance, Fannie Mae has a new underwriting guideline called Buy and Bail for current homeowners who plan on keeping their existing home as an investment or residential property. Properties not meeting the 30% equity test for buy and bail may have to result, buyers with not meeting the 30% equity test, meaning they don't have 30% in the property, planning on, this line I've got is a little bit confused here. Equity test for the buy and bail result in additional asset requirements to purchase a new home. Buyers with a short sale history may have to wait 2 or 3 years before they're eligible for mortgage financing again. Full vetting of your previous mortgage life will save you the dreaded "we have a problem" call from your mortgage lender. It all comes down to your proof. If the lender asks for a specific document, give them exactly what they're asking for, not what should be okay, because it won't be. This is where the approval process tends to go off the rails when the lender asks for specific documentation and the borrower supplies something else. Here too is where both sides get frustrated. So if the lender asks for a bank statement and there are 5 pages for that bank statement, send them all 5 pages, not just the summary. If you send them the summary page and they ask again, don't complain that the lender keeps asking for the same thing when you never sent it in the first place. This may sound elementary, but the vast majority of mortgage approval process woes stem from scenarios just like this. The reason the mortgage approval process is now so rigorous is simple. Avoiding defaults and loan buybacks has become the primary goal of mortgage lenders. Higher standards are reducing loan defaults, which should mean fewer foreclosures in the future. Government data shows that less than 2% of loans originated in 2009 that were resold to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae went into default after 18 months, down from more than 22% default rates for 2007 loans. So, when your lender requests specific documents from you, give it to them just because they said so, and you can thank my dad for that. Again, that was rather lengthy, but I hope I drilled home the situation that we're out here with. When they're talking about documenting things, we're talking about if the person has a checking account, they supplied their checking account statements, and you see their 2 deposits from their job, and now you see another deposit for $1,450, which is not from a job, they're going to have to source and season that deposit for us. They're going to have to prove where the money came from. What the lenders are trying to make sure that they're doing is that they're not borrowing from Guido down on the street corner the money they need to close at ridiculous rates. And so those types of things will need to be documented. I was actually working with a real estate agent that had great credit scores, and he discovered that he either forgot, they got lost or whatever, but his tax returns were shown that had never been filed with the IRS. And he just went completely berserk asking why we would require tax returns. Well, come on, folks, that's one of the normal documents that they're going to be looking for. So we see all sorts of surprises here. The next bullet point here I've got is the simple process. For the applicant, it's important when you're talking to the borrowers that they realize that this is a simple process. Some lenders like to play God, and they're the little pawns, and they're the big guys, and we're loaning you the money. Well, it shouldn't be like that. The borrower should be explained, applying for a loan is simple. It simply finds out who you are, where you live, how much you make and how much you owe, and have you had anything like bankruptcies or foreclosures. It's just that simple. For me to take an application over the phone normally takes 8 to 10 minutes at the very, very most. People don't have to come into my office if they want to. They're more than happy to. But I've generated a quick way of getting loans processed, 10 minutes with them on the phone to get their information. Next hour, the paperwork's printed out and sent to them. They send it back to us, and we're ready to put their loan into underwriting. The next bullet point, 1003. You would normally say 1003, but it is actually 1003. And the reason I share that with you is that I'd like to just give you a leg up on your other competition, and more importantly, to give you a leg up when you're a listing agent and you're calling up that lender to ask them, how does the borrower stack up? Well, this is just a simple trick for you to get a little bit more interaction going with that lender. If everybody looks at this loan application, the first page, and if you look down way at the bottom right, you're going to see Fannie Mae Form 1003. Okay, now the people of you that have been at closings will always see the title person ask the lender to sign the 1003. They never say, will you please sign the application? It's, can you sign the 1003? So just as a hint, when you guys are making that call to that list, to that lender to find out how the borrowers stack up, just try this once. Instead of saying, well, how did their application turn out? Ask them, how did their 1003 stack up? The moment you do that to a lender, in their mind, they're going to say, how do they know that this is called a 1003? And they're going to think, you must have some knowledge of mortgage. And they will start divulging more things to you and talking to you more frankly about how the borrowers stack up. Real quickly about the real estate contract and seller concessions. Have you guys had the contracts flash yet? No. Okay. You have or not? A couple here? Okay. Okay, well, as you know, in the real estate contract, it gives the seller the ability to pay seller concessions, which pays for prepaids and closing costs. Remember, please, back in the day, back when I was actively doing what you're doing, it was common to walk into a house and see that the carpet was horrible, the paint was horrible, and to say, okay, when you're writing the contract, we want the seller to credit us $4,000 at closing to replace the carpet and the paint. That was doable back then. It is no longer doable now, and I'm still seeing seasoned real estate agents putting that in, additional provisions that it will pay for this and that. It can only be paid for closing costs and prepaids and interest. Okay, so it's important to realize that. When you're out there and you're trying to determine how much that you should be asking for in seller concessions, I know on the street it's typical to ask for 3% of the offering price. I highly recommend that you do not do that. I recommend that if you're working with a good lender, they should be able to take the 10 or 15 minutes to take your information about the property and spit out a figure that says estimated funds that these people are going to need to close will be $4,000 and $4,500. Okay, I always estimate high so that when I give a borrower saying they need to come in with $8,000, there's a good chance that they're only going to have to come in with $7,000. I'd rather do that than to say, oops, I told you 7, we need 8. So that's the way I work with that. Get the actual dollar amount, because right now, for instance, government loans, when we give out an interest rate, we are also paying a huge amount of the closing cost for the buyer. Okay? We're taking extra money that's thrown off by doing the loan, instead of putting it in our pocket, we're crediting that borrower. So on a VA, the last few that I've done, they're actually getting money back with no seller concessions at that time. So it's important to have the lender go ahead and generate those numbers for you. The perfect file sort of touched on this about pre-qualify versus pre-approve. Pre-qualify is basically where I'll talk to the person over the phone and they'll tell me, yeah, I've worked for Apex Mining for 2 years and I make $15 an hour and I've been doing it for a long time. I've got previous history in the same industry. I do the numbers, make sure that all the ratios stack up, which would be debt to income, how much they make against how much they owe. As far as assets, do they have enough for down payment and that sort of thing? But that is pre-qualifying. They have told me, and I've made a determination off of that. We at SkyStar want to go the next step, which is pre-approval. And Brian's got a good thing going here, and I think it's the best idea since sliced bread. The moment we do that loan application, regardless if your clients have found a property or not, we're going to ask them for their W-2s. We're going to ask them for their pay stubs. We're going to ask them for their bank accounts and 401ks so we can physically see that what they were telling us was true and that you guys aren't wasting gas bringing people out that really can't qualify. And the nightmares that I hear are staggering, and it normally happens on the day of closing. On the day of closing, the lender found out they needed something else, and whatever it was, it kills the deal. At SkyStar, we don't do that. We do everything up front. In here, you'll see a little handout about required documentation. Numbers as far as what they need, the pay stubs, the W-2s, residence information, bank statements, all of these types of things. And it's very funny how they mentioned that in that letter, because I put my request for documents in writing to the borrower, and I always say, please send over your 2 bank accounts, all pages. And I typically will get them, but I'd say 7 out of 10 times, they send me over page 1. And this article was right. Now we go back, can you send us the full bank statements? Well, I already sent you that. I sent you page 1. Well, we needed all the pages, so we just lost a day or 2 in underwriting there because they failed to actually, understand what we had put into plain English. What's the interest rate today? If you ask a lender what the interest rate today is, and they give you an interest rate, they have just shown you how unprofessional and how unknowledgeable that they are. You might as well have just gone to the paper to see what the going 30-year fixed rate on a conventional mortgage is. That'll tell you just as much. Why can't the lender tell you what the interest rate is? The reason is because the interest rate that you get will be based on a number of things. First of all, what's your credit score? A higher credit score, and by the way, it used to be 700 was the bar and above for a great credit score. Then it went to 720, and then it went to 740. Now we're approaching 760 to be that great credit score, just for your own information on that. So you need to know what their credit score is. If they've got a low credit score, believe me, if somebody comes in doing a conventional loan with great credit in today's market, asterisk that as an example, they're going to get 4 1/8% interest rate. And this is just sort of guesstimating here. If somebody comes in with a 640, that 4 1/8 has now probably jumped up to about 5% or a little bit more. That's how much just the credit score can do. If you're buying an investment property versus a owner-occupied property, that's going to give another add-on, which pushes the cost and the interest rate up just a little bit. Is it a second home? Is it owner-occupant? What is your debt to income? Are you below 45? Are you 50? Are you 55? What loan are you getting? Are you getting an FHA? Right now, across the board, FHAs are pretty much at about 3.75 with great income, with great debt to income ratios, with great loan to values, about 3.75. On a conventional loan with great income, great credit, et cetera, you're closer to 4 1/4. So there's about a 0.5% spread. So nobody can really just say, oh, the rate today is this, unless they ask you all those questions. Preliminary approval, the process basically goes like this. We ask for the borrowers to give us their information, fill out the application, well, sign the application, sign the disclosures, give us your asset and income documentation, and we submit all of that to underwriting. Here at SkyStar, we don't like to submit partial files because the underwriters don't appreciate that. We like to submit full files, so when it goes through, it sails through. Give it to the underwriter underwrites, and if the loan officer's done their job right, predicting how things should go, we'll get a preliminary approval back saying, congratulations, your loan is approved, but we need these following items to get your loan cleared to close, okay? Once we give them those final items, those conditions, you would think that you'd be ready to clear to close right there, but what you have to remember is that a condition can spawn another condition, and a lot of real estate agents don't understand that, and the borrowers don't understand it because they thought we were done. All they asked for was a bank statement. Well, yes, you gave us the bank statement, but there's an $18,000 deposit on there that nobody knows about. Now they're getting conditioned to source and season that particular condition. So now when you're done going back and forth and back and forth, and finally we have satisfied all the conditions, that is when you get the CTC, or the clear to close. Okay? When you are talking, you're a listing agent, you're talking to the lender, trying to figure out where you are in the process, you're not interested about, is the borrower completely approved? Okay, because you can have a borrower completely approved, but it's not going anywhere fast as far as getting the title work documents and figures so they can get a HUD out and close the deal. You don't want to know, are they fully approved? Is the loan cleared to close? If it's cleared to close, it means you're in business, you're heading to the closing table. One thing that I'll share, and maybe the title people can help and let me know what they're doing, but just to add something on of value to you, this change has happened within the last 4 or 5 months as far as I'm concerned. Up until then, it was extremely standard for, you guys are representing a borrower would come to the closing with a cashier's check made out to themselves, and they would endorse it over to the title company. It was sort of to protect them security-wise in case they lost the check. It was made out to them, nobody could use it. That has changed, and title companies, I see a nod back here, title companies are taking knee-jerk reactions for good reasons, but they're implementing them all differently. And where this all came from was the advent of the camera phone and banking. You know the camera phone now with certain institutions, you can take a picture of your check and it automatically deposits into the account. Believe it or not, these idiots, if you excuse the expression, these idiots were taking a picture of their cashier's check right before walking into closing and putting the money back into their account. Now the reason I say that they're a little dim-witted is, how long is it going to take them to find out, number one, that the money's not there? And number two, you just bought a house, so they know where they're going to find you. So we're now stuck with a variety. What is your policy now?
Same thing. It's actually happened at another title company, and so as a result, it only takes one, right? One person has changed the policy for everyone.
Do you guys have a particular?
We prefer a wire.
wire.
You prefer a wire. Okay, well, see, that's how they're going. And before, we could always go under the assumption that having it endorsed over is fine. So you're probably going to be working with some mentors, all right, that are going to be just talking about, well, yeah, just get the cashier's check, have it made out to them. Well, now you can let them know, no, we have to call the title company and find out what they will accept. As you said, they say that they're leaning for wires. There are title companies out there that make it now the cashier's check has to be made out to the title company, all right? Some are saying that they're only going to accept a wire. So just something off the top of my head to let you know to be aware of. We've got all sorts of financing out here, and Dan and I are up here. We're available 24/7, but we're here 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, but we also work weekends and evenings. So we're here to serve your needs, conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, and mortgage insurance. If you can jump way down to the very bottom bullet point, you guys are the first one to know that I just got a real estate commission course approved for 2 continuing education credits. There is no charge, but I felt this 1 hour is just not enough to get you guys up and running where you really need to be. So I created a course called Beyond Mortgage 101. It's been approved by the commission. I think the first one we're going to be putting on is going to be somewhere in September. We'd love to have you there because we're going to cover how are loans priced, how is mortgage insurance calculated. Right now we've got a 5% down loan without any mortgage insurance. How do you do that? I've got a loan right now, no income verification. Right? Now we knew all these loans disappeared. Are you aware they're coming back? They're actually coming back. We've got a 30% down, no income verification on an investment property. You can have a 660 minimum credit score. No income verification. Yeah, welcome. Come on. We've also got another product that's just popped out, and it's going back to what we call bank statement qualifying. So instead of, I'm almost out of, I've got 25 minutes, okay. So instead of looking at pay stubs to qualify, what they do for self-employed people, they look at 1 year's worth of personal returns and they calculate the amount of the deposits in their account. That becomes their income. And that's really huge because a lot of self-employed people, including myself, tend to write off a lot of things because we can't. One little trick that we do here at SkyStar, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, you'll hear this number that when you're self-employed, we need 2 years worth of your tax returns, okay? But what that is forgetting is that in most cases, if we run this loan through Freddie Mac versus Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac is going to come back and say we only need 1 year's worth of tax returns. And Freddie Mac has several other things, higher debt to income ratios that they'll allow. So your lender has to know, which way are we sending? Are we sending it to Freddie, Fannie, Ginnie? What is the way that we're going with that? Why don't you come on up and talk to us about derogatory timeframes?
Yeah, one other thing, another program that came out, this is through one of our broker relationships that Kemper's talking about, thanks Kemper, with the bank statement program. They also rolled out another program where you can buy investment property and the income is based off the cash flow of the property. So for instance, they're not doing income verifications, just what the cash flow and what a rent schedule would provide on that property. I think again, the minimum down payment is 30%. They're called, alternate QM loans. So they're not your regular conventional loans. The rates are going to be higher, but I do have a lot of investors that might be something interesting to them. So something to think about. I'll get this kicked up here, but one handout that I did give you was, we get a lot of questions on this, and part of my job, not only to be a loan officer, is to help market some of the things that we do. So one is to get you guys quality information that's helpful information. We do email blasts every once in a while when we have useful information for you. We don't want to blast out things that are junk or is going to, waste time in your day. This is something we sent out a couple weeks ago. It's buying after derogatory credit. We get a lot of questions on that, and this is something you can hold on to so you have handy about when can somebody apply after they've had derogatory credit. As we know, a lot of people went through those situations over the last few years, and this gives you an idea, what to do after derogatory credit.
I did forget, folks, the very last page of that handout that I gave you. Lenders will never tell you the actual specifics, but these were just 4 of my loans done back in March. These loans all got cleared to close within 16 days. And as Brian alluded to, we just had one cleared to close in 6 days. Yes, ma'am?
Do you have any more newspapers?
Yeah, how many are missing a package? One, keep your hands up,
No, I
please.
have this, I just don't have this.
Okay. You're missing a package, Mary? Okay, one for you and one for you. I'll make them, as soon as we're done talking, I'll bring them to you.
Thank you.
One more?
I need that one back in, because that's the one I'm going to make the copies of.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm like, there you go. Yeah. You will get one. So hold on to this. I think there's a sign-up form, and we'll get you on the blasts that we do to get you other useful information. A couple of things off what Kemper was talking about as well for the fast clear to closes. Of course, in our world, we're a correspondent lender and we're a broker. So what does that mean? You got the best of both worlds. We can fund our own loans, and when we have normal, regular, conventional financing, like maybe an easier loan if you want to call it, that's our fast channel. So we can get that, our underwriting turn times are 24 to 48 hours. That's for initial approval, conditions, all the time involved in getting a loan done. If there's something a little trickier, maybe it's a loan where we have to broker where there's a high debt to income, maybe it's an FHA loan where they have low credit scores, we can broker that. That just means we're sending it out to investor, they're underwriting it in-house for us, and we'll broker that loan. But that gives you options. It's not like a Wells Fargo, if you don't have 680 score, you're not getting a loan. We have options to do lower credit score scenarios. Of course, those might take a little longer than a fast clear to close like our regular channels. Just something to keep in mind. Also, part of what, and we'll take some questions right after this, so part of what we do, and I always say in Mortgage 101, if you have questions, just call us. If you have anything, there's obviously a lot of holes. We could talk a whole day about this and put you to sleep. But if you have questions on any programs or anything, definitely call us. One thing that I'm working on also to help you guys is also to help you with customer retention management, CRM or CRM systems. And you guys may have been with other companies, or maybe you're new as an agent, but you've worked with customer retention management system. We use a system in-house that we put together so we can help co-brand. Like if we're working on maybe a customer together, we want to co-brand your information as well, so we're appearing as a team and helping that customer get to the closing table to buy their home or whatever they're trying to do. Part of the co-branding that we do is it's a system called Surefire. So one, if we're working on somebody, we might send out periodic emails telling them what's specific to their situation. Maybe they need credit help, maybe they need credit repair. We'll put them on a plan for that. As long as the credit's not completely trashed, we can help them, we can guide them, we understand the credit process, we can help with the repair and tell them what to do. And we'll co-brand along the way as they're fixing their credit. Let's build our pipeline for 6 months, a year down the road together. If it's a customer that's looking and they're looking to buy now, we have an in-process campaign where we want to communicate. That was part of the feedback working with agents over the years. We want communication, right? You want to know what's going on with the loan. You don't want to know every detail, but you know everything's okay through the process, right? Or if there's a hang-up, let's talk about it right away. Part of our in-process communication is going to go out to listing agent or you as the buyer's agent. This is one video I'm going to show just to get an example of some of the in-process communication we do. Email goes out to you guys. These videos dynamically pull in the customers or the clients, their information in there, so it's specific to them. It's kind of fun, it's kind of quirky, but it gives them information and also communicate to everybody. So I'll play this one, and so you can get an idea what some of this is.
Congratulations, and thank you for entrusting us with your business. Together, our uncompromising goal is to exceed your expectations every step of the way. In that spirit, our team will be in touch frequently throughout the process. We've conducted an initial review of your application and are ready to initiate the most critical stage of the mortgage process. We call this the documentation stage. And during the documentation stage, you are far and away the most important player on the team. As quarterback of the documentation stage, there are a few critical documents we'll be asking you to hand off as soon as possible. These documents will include W-2s, tax returns, bank statements, paycheck stubs, and finally, your 4th grade report card. Actually, we're kidding about the report card, but if you are self-employed, documentation may vary. We'll be in touch with alternate instructions. For a more detailed list of documentation requirements, please click the Doc List button below the video. While you're gathering those documents together, here are a few other important do's and don'ts to keep in mind. Don't make any major purchases. So unfortunately, the Cadillac and 90-inch flat screen you've had your eye on will have to wait until after closing. And please don't quit your day job or make any radical life changes while your loan is in process. Also, don't apply for any new credit of any sort. Did you know that applying for a credit card can lower your credit score by as much as 5 points or more? This change could potentially make the difference between your mortgage being approved or denied. And here's one thing we'd love for you to do. If we're meeting or hopefully exceeding your expectations, please click the thumbs up button below this video. And if you'd be so kind to go one step further, please don't keep us a secret. A referral from you is the greatest compliment we can receive. It would be an honor to show your friends or family the same great service you're experiencing today. Once again, thank you for entrusting us with the opportunity to serve you. We promise to be in touch again soon with more updates, so please stay tuned.
So I was talking about customer retention management. I mean, for you, or what we try to teach in the one-on-one class too, is take care of those customers. Because once a customer closes as well, we send out co-branding material for 5 years, whether it be postcards, anniversary card, loan anniversary cards. I mean, not marriage anniversary, but loan anniversary, holiday cards, all those type of things. So when I first got in the business, luckily somebody told me that a long time ago. I don't know how many of you are new, but get a customer retention management system. Keep track of those people. How many referrals that you can get off those customers. We're happy to talk to you about what our program does, and we'll work on leads together. But I can also talk to you about other programs that I've used in the past too, just so you guys can use in real estate. So
Do you have the clear to close video?
I do. I think I'll just show one on that.
Okay.
So I think you guys might have some questions and maybe some comments or things that you want to ask.
Just 2 quick things
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that 5-year after closing marketing program, they're touched 84 times during the 5-year period with your picture, information, all that stuff through, as he said, emails, videos, cards, mailings. So for 5 years. And then the only other thing I wanted to make sure you knew is that our client retention system also works for that period of time where you've got a prospective borrower, but they're really not ready to go out and start looking and whatnot. We've got a, what's it called?
Well, it's just
The first one, the 3 or 6 month version?
it's just a prospect campaign.
Prospect
depending
campaign.
on the turn time.
And so you give us the information and then automatically start sending out important stuff to keep them thinking about doing a real estate transaction.
So you guys, while we're up here, you guys have any questions or thoughts or things or scenarios you guys have had that we could try to answer for you or help out?
How does it work? We join a program or how?
Our system, we just have, we have the full system, so if we're working on somebody, no matter where it's coming from, or customers that we work on at our own, we put them into the system just to contact them periodically. So it's nothing you guys have to do. But if we're working on, let's say you have somebody that's gonna buy a home, and it's Joe Smith. Joe Smith will put in the system to get these periodic updates. Usually I'll just grab your information from the CCP website and put it in there, so you're co-branded with the emails and the postcards and everything.
Just like Louis and Margaret.
Yep, exactly, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, do we need to pay you?
No, not on that, because this, really all this is free, because we don't even pay for this system until the post-closing information, so that's how they get around all the rest of
Oh,
the issues, so,
okay.
yeah. Yes, sir.
You talked about getting a client pre-approved at the beginning.
Mhm.
At what point do you have to have the actual house?
We can actually do a pre-approval or actually a full underwrite on a TBD.
To be
So,
determined.
To be determined. So if you have somebody that is maybe questionable as far as being able to purchase something, and it's not something where we, Kemper and I in most scenarios, we're gonna know once we go through a file if there's some major questions, right? Occasionally, if there's something where we think this should be fully underwritten, before you actually go out and get a contract, we can do that. So that'd be like a full underwritten TBD approval before they actually.
That's
go
more
in
the
front.
exception than the rule,
Yeah.
because normally we'll have our automated underwriting findings and all the documentation that we need.
Yeah. Does that answer your question? Or is it?
Well, you generate, like how much can we afford?
Yeah, generate how much you can afford. Somebody calls, we can literally talk to them, get their information, plug in the system, pull credit. We could have how much can you afford within, half hour, if we're talking to somebody, yeah.
See, and a lot of the lenders, the bad lenders, I like to call them, when they're talking about how much you can afford, they're gonna go right out and calculate the maximum amount of home that they can buy. I like to take more of a humanitarian approach to that, because they're really not sure about what really is going on. My question to the borrower is that if you're gonna be making a payment every month for the next 5 years, what would be your maximum payment that you'd be comfortable with? And then they're gonna spit out a number. And it gives me a better idea of where they can go. Now, for instance, FHA, in most cases with poor credit, we could probably get an approval up to 55% debt to income. Am I gonna recommend this person that has poor credit go to the max of 55%, meaning more than half of their income is going just to their mortgage payment? I think I'd be doing them a major disservice for that. So even though we could go that way, I'd be consulting them more, we ought to keep you below 45. Because our thing is not just to do the loans, it's to make sure that you guys have happy clients at the closing and the 5 years after that.
And the only, just a caveat to that, so if somebody is trying to get a pre-approval, if they're self-employed, I will want to look at tax returns before I actually calculate what their income's going to be, because there are a lot of things that go into tax returns, and actually, the crazy thing that drives us nuts is different lenders, different underwriters will actually calculate self-employed income differently. So I want to see those so I can calculate those before they get too wild out there trying to find a loan. Any other questions or thoughts? Or?
Yes, sir.
Credit scores?
Yes.
Is there a limitation how many times you can pull a credit score?
What the FICO system says, when you pull credit, when you do a first mortgage credit pull, let's say today you pull that. Supposedly with the FICO system, that might drop your score, depending on your credit, a few points. But it's not supposed to affect your score for the next 30 days if you get other credit applications. Because you're trying to take a few applications, get the best rate or whatever it might be. It's not supposed to affect your score within 30 days. Does that make sense? But the higher your score is, the less it's going to affect you. If you have a 500 score and you do a mortgage pull, you're probably dropping another 10 to 15 points. So it's a crazy algorithm that they do in the scoring system. But one bit of good news, I forgot to mention, the FICO system. FICO came out with a release, and FICO is mostly what your credit scores are based off of. There's Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You get a tri-merge report, 3 scores from those 3 companies. 2 of them use the FICO system, 1 uses the Beacon system, but the FICO system, this algorithm that they come up with your scores, they're going to change it to make it a little bit better for people because, one, if you have old medical collections on there, that won't affect your score. If you have old collections in general, past a certain date, that won't affect your score.
With
There
the
are a couple
new
other-
version.
Yeah, with the new version. They haven't rolled that out yet, but it's meant to help some of those people that maybe have medical things or things that are out of their control or have enough time has passed to not hurt them so bad so their score is a little bit better. So that'll help people. Was there something else in the FICO system, do you remember, that they were gonna change? There's a couple other
There were
things.
several good things.
We're gonna send out a blast on that because I was waiting on a couple clarifications on what they're gonna do, but I'll send that out, so read that when you get it.
And they also, like, at the same time, I think Fannie either has or is about to, they're gonna tighten up the guidelines on when you can buy a house after a short sale. So, things are getting better, things are getting worse,
Yeah.
but, any other
Yeah.
questions?
So I'm sure you guys probably went over this. From actual application for mortgage to closing, what is your guys' average time period?
We just showed right on the back of
Oh, it's
the
in here?
presentation she got there, that we're known for getting our files closed and cleared to close within 16 days.
Okay.
We've done sooner than that, but most lenders out here can't effectively get a loan to closing within 45 days.
Yeah.
This obviously has to do with, number one, is the borrower helping us the way we need to. If I ask one of your borrowers to send me documents and they've not sent it to me that day, you're gonna get a phone call from me saying, your borrower is not helping. Because if the
If
borrower
you're trying to
helps,
close fast or something.
everything goes right, we can get these things done very quickly. Great question.
And I did mention, because I hate, I like to also put in that's on clean loans, right?
Okay.
So if we're doing the correspondent loans where we're funding that ourselves, those are the clean ones. If we got something where there's credit issues or we have to fix something on credit, or, that's gonna take some time. So we just need to be on the same page, that's all. If you got somebody to work on, I'll let you know what the scenario is. If it's pretty clean, it's gonna be on a quicker channel. If it's not, maybe it's gonna take 30 days.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, I mentioned already the CE course that'll be coming up in September. Look on the dashboard for that. Then you'll see that one bullet point I hadn't talked about, which was priority status request. And I would just ask you to think back to your own experience. You're getting your hair cut. The phone rings. You look down, there's a number, you don't know what it is. Most people aren't going to answer it. You're on the golf course. You're about to tee off. You look down at your phone, the phone's ringing. You don't know who it is. You're going to tee off. Probably get that message after you get off the golf course. Here at SkyStar, all you have to do is to email me a request to be put on priority status. And what that simply means is that you are now put on my speed dial, so that when you call, it's not, hello, who is this? How can I help you? It's more, hey Mary, thanks for calling. What can I help you with on your loan? You are somebody if you're actually set up on a priority status, and as a Cherry Creek agent, you're already on priority. This just puts you on a highest level of priority. And we appreciate your time. Enjoy the title class.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Walk into an office and say, here's what I know. I sell it, you need it, why not use me? And then from there, I began to work really hard to catch up and learn as much as I could so that I can be a valuable resource to you. Ben is my assistant. We work together on this account, so either one of us are good contacts for you. And I want to encourage you that we are not going to care if it's our deal or if you put it with another title company or you're the buyer's agent. It doesn't matter. You still might have questions, and we want to be known as the people you can call, okay? Because we're here to help, and we're going to become important to your team. When you do give us an order, we are honored to work with you, and we want to help you any way we can. So what I do is, because I am not the expert on closing, and you wouldn't want me to close, because I'd probably talk too much, I bring Liz along, and Liz helps me. She is an escrow office in our Castle Rock office. Now, what does that mean? That means that you can still send your orders to me. I can give them to Liz to close, but you are not limited to only closing in Castle Rock. I want to make sure you understand that. If you need to go to DTC or our Highlands Ranch or our Cherry Creek office,
Lakewood.
anywhere, we are more than happy to travel and assist you with all your closing needs. And that's really important. So one thing that I wanted to kind of go over with you today and I think, are most of you new? I know I keep asking. Yes? Okay. This is a company that First American partners with that I'm really excited about. I mean, really, really excited. And the reason I'm excited is because on this handy dandy website, you are going to find all kinds of real estate letters that all you have to do is insert your name, your company, and it's going to give you the marketing tools that you're going to need to go out and begin to build your business. I want you to make sure you write down the site. I did bring a couple of these guides, and I do apologize. I'll leave them up at the front. If you do not get one today, shoot Ben or I an email. Okay? This is like a step-by-step guide to helping you with your real estate business. Cherry Creek offers you wonderful, wonderful tools, but all the more resources that you can get to help your business. And starting a business, I mean, I started in title insurance, as I told you. It's really hard to get clients, right? And I didn't have a lot of money to spend on people to buy their business, so I needed help. And this is a nice site that First American, can you bring it back?
Yeah, it's coming back. So what I'm doing right here, okay, so it's gonna load. If you saw me click on that new agent newsletter, there's a bunch of already written out letters. So I mean, it's gonna sound like it's coming straight from you. You go ahead, plug in your first name, last name, your title, your company name, your logo, and you print this out and you send it to people, and it's got a new agent letter that's gonna make it sound like, you know, you're not the newest agent walking off the street that wants to sell their house, but you're also just now retouching on some of these, you know, whether it's your sphere or farm or whatever it is. So all this stuff in there is very, very, very helpful.
Remember the key word here is no cost to you, right? So we're trying to come up with ways to help you as newer agents that are at no cost. And if you have any questions or you get stuck, but there's for sale by owner templates. There are all types of templates to help you begin to market your business. So I would definitely, and Ben's going to do this for you so you can see. But this is a wonderful guide. Like I said, if you do not get one, email us and we'll get you one. Okay, just give us your mailing address so we can mail it to you. Because I know it seems to me that when I send things to Cherry Creek agents, Cherry Creek property agents here, it gets lost sometimes in a big hole. So let us know and we're happy to do that. So Ben's going to show you.
So it'll go in there, it'll change the whole thing. I don't want to waste your time going through every little detail, but it'll brand the letter. It looks like it's coming straight from you, like you typed the whole thing up. So it's pretty neat stuff. The only other thing that I can add is Elizabeth and I are here to be a resource for you. We've got our marketing department in-house. We've got a number of tools that we just want to help you get started in your business. So any marketing needs, if you're working with the website, you have a question, feel free to give us a call. Shoot us an email, shoot me a text, shoot her a text, whoever. We're just trying to help you as much as we can.
Go back to the main page. I want to show them the one other thing, and then I'll get out of your hair. This is the other thing I'm really excited about. Okay, can you go to the online yard sign?
First American Title gave us these really awesome computers that are so fast.
Online yard sign.
Oh, you want me to go there?
Go to the home. It should be on the home. Go down. Okay, there we go. All right, so is everybody familiar with when you upload a listing into MLS that they send it on to Trulio and Zillow and that you lose all your branding? Are you guys kind of aware of that? So what we're going to teach you today is something called My Online Yard Sign. What this allows you to do is before you upload your listing into MLS, you're going to create a virtual, it's actually going to show up yard sign with your information on it. Why is that important? I'll tell you why. I was that person. I bought a house. I drove around a neighborhood. I found signs, and I called the agent on the sign. So you're doing all the work to get the listing, right? If by chance, and since most people start their search on Zillow and Trulio and all those sites, it would be nice to brand your home on those sites so that in case someone is like me and they just want to buy a house in a certain neighborhood, they already know how to contact you. Another free resource, and we're going to show you. Yes, sir?
So then, if we go ahead and go on My Online Yard Sign and do all that, and then branded on MLS, it shows up with all that
It
information?
will not show it on MLS.
It will not, okay.
No, but you want to brand all your photos, every photo, you want to have a sign.
So then that doesn't connect to like my
MLS
at all?
won't allow it.
Okay,
Okay, but the way it's working now is once you upload that listing into MLS, they send it out.
yeah.
And then other agents can take your listing essentially and market it, right?
Oh,
I did not know that.
So this is, Ben's, put a picture, Ben.
so if we do
It's the only
it
way I
here,
can find.
it'll be our picture.
Correct, and you're
Always.
gonna, but only will it show, your branding will only show on Zillow, Trulia, but at least it's showing somewhere, right?
But they're allowing that on Zillow and Trulia.
Yes.
Because I mean, they sell it, you know,
I
so you
know.
can be on the right. I'm surprised they are allowed.
Hey,
Yeah, it's a
Eric-
fight, it's a fight.
Eric, who's the
So
founder.
there you go, you can see, we
Sorry, I
have
just totally
one
quick so I
bad.
could find it quick. Eric, the founder of Breakthrough Broker, actually, I think Zillow like took him to the Venetian or somewhere in Vegas, and they were like in a panel like arguing against him of this. They were like, "Quit doing that," and he's like, "Why? I can do whatever I want."
But now let me
No.
tell you, you are 30 steps ahead of agents that are experienced because they don't know about this.
So we need to do it before we list it on MLS.
Correct.
So we go to,
You can go to Breakthrough Broker and they actually have the link on the homepage
Okay.
or My Online Yard Sign.
okay. So Cherry Creek Properties sends it out to all these places for us, but they don't,
But I would
Branding
still, I
goes
would
away.
still brand my own photos and you can check. I would always check with your, your management team here to make sure. But, this way it kind of helps you.
Where is,
Where
I
is
don't
it?
know where it is on here. I don't.
Go
I
down,
just-
scroll down, scroll down.
I
There you go.
oh, here.
Right there.
So we do it for every listing?
Every listing, every photo.
Oh,
And like I said, the only reason that this will help you, or how it will help you, is because if someone's like me, buying their first home, and they don't really understand the difference, right? And I'm not smart, and I was not, and believe me, this is kind of a big confession from me, because my father is a real estate broker. I drove around, called someone on the sign. When I met him, he said, "Now you understand I work for the seller. Does that mean you can't sell me the home?" "No, I can sell you the home, but I work for the seller." Well, that made absolutely no sense to me. So I went ahead and went through with it, right? But I'm saying you're gonna find people that are on Trulia and Zillow searching for their first home, because that's how most of them are gonna find it. And at least now they're gonna find you.
that's, yeah.
Does that help? Those are some helpful hints from Heloise today. And I'm gonna turn it over to Liz. And she is taking new clients. She is taking new clients today.
Yes.
So let us know how we can help you. Thank you.
Do you need these?
I think I'm good.
My name's Liz, and I will keep this as short as possible. I know you've all been sitting here a while. I've been with First American for over 10 years. I've been in escrow for over 18. And today, we're just gonna talk a little bit about the escrow forms that you'll see at closing. So, before we get started, does anybody have any questions off the top of their head that they know of? No? So no one here has had a closing yet at all? No? Okay, you have had a closing? Okay. So what you can kind of expect is that the title company is going to start their process once the contract is all signed and it's sent over to the title company. We'll do a title search on the property and we'll send out a title report for everybody to take a look at. You always want to take a look at that title report, read through it, page to page. It'll look foreign to you initially, but after a while you'll get used to what you need to look for specifically. And there are classes that are available for the title policies that are conducted as well if you wanted to sit through a class just on that specifically, if you haven't already. So once all of that title report fun stuff is done and you're just simply waiting for the loan approval and you're waiting to close, we do, that's kind of our downtime also. We're just clearing up the title report if there's any issues. If there's no issues, we simply wait for the lender to give us the cue to go. So we're ready to close. Our closing date is here, the loan's approved. So we're going to schedule the appointment. And when you're scheduling the appointment, you want to find out, I think Elizabeth mentioned, where is the house at? Where is it convenient for your buyers and your sellers to sign their documents? Most title companies have offices throughout, throughout town, so you can pick and choose which location is most convenient for your customer, and we can accommodate them at that location. How long does the closing take? It can vary. So some closings can take half an hour, 45 minutes, and some can take over an hour. Once you get to the closing table, your escrow officer should kind of set up the scene for you and let you know, are there funding conditions? Meaning, once we sign these documents, is there anything that we need to scan over to the lender for them to look at before they authorize the title company to use the funds that they've sent to close on the home? Sometimes there are none, meaning we can just sign everything, buyer gives us their money for closing, and then we're done, we're closed, congratulations. But sometimes it can take a little longer, so be patient with that and be prepared. Allow yourself enough time in case there are funding conditions and they need to be sent over, because sometimes the lender can review them in 5 minutes, and sometimes it can take them a little longer. Are you going to scroll for me?
Yeah, I'll scroll for you.
Okay. I know that we touched base on making sure that your customer knows the amount that they need for closing and how to bring those funds to closing in the form of a cashier's check payable to the title company itself or via wire. Your title escrow agent should be sending you in advance before the closing day, if they receive the documents in time, which they should, because you're going to use SkyStar. You should know how much money they're going to need to bring to the closing table, and they should be getting that in advance. You should receive the settlement statement to go over with them, and you should receive wiring instructions as well. Okay? Now, without further ado, we'll move on to the screen. There is a couple of items in the front here. We're going to go over the HUD, but I just want to show you the first 2 items in here, which is one of the things that you're going to sign as the agent. There is a buyer's settlement statement, and there's going to be a seller's settlement statement. The reason that we sign these separately is because most of the title companies will put the signature page attached so that the agent's name merges onto there. So you're saying that you reviewed these figures and you believe they're true and correct to the best of your knowledge as well. You're representing your customer. So you can go ahead and keep scrolling to the HUD, Ben. So just buyers and sellers forms in there.
Oh, we don't sign until closing, right?
You don't sign until closing. All right, now you can stop at this one. Now, both these settlement statements and the HUD, which is everyone familiar with the term HUD? Housing and Urban Development. This is who governs this whole process. HUD tells us how to prepare these forms. They tell us where we're going to put everything on these forms, and we have to follow their guidelines. So we're going to go over the HUD so that you know what you're looking at, and you can better help your client. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, they're going to have no confidence in you. Up at the top section, you're going to have the basics of the loan. What type of loan is it? What's the loan number? There's going to be a mortgage case number if it's an FHA or a VA loan. The next few sections, you have the address of your customer, the name and address of the seller, the lender, property location, and who your settlement agent is. This next section, it's simple plus and minus. Basically, they add up all the charges, subtract what you owe, and whatever the balance is the bottom line of the statement. So these 2 sections mirror each other on the first page. The 100 section is charges to your buyer. The buyer's always going to be on the left, the seller's always going to be on the right. So in this case, the buyer's paying $400,000 for this home, and the seller's getting credited $400,000 for this home. The next section is settlement charges. No, you're okay, Ben, sorry.
Sorry.
I shouldn't have done that. So the 8,354 on there, or 394, sorry, I'm getting old, I can't see, is their settlement charges to the buyer. That number right there is always gonna be the total of the second page. The second page of your HUD, if you add it up, and many have tried, every time you add this up, it will total the settlement charges on the front. So when they say, where did this big number come from? It's just a compilement of this. And then you're gonna most often see, back on the first page, in the offset, anything here is gonna be association dues, taxes, everything that you're offsetting is gonna go in this section. If the HOA charges a working capital fee that they're transferring to the new homeowner, that's gonna be in this section. Below this section right here, scroll up a little bit, Ben. This section right here flips it, and it's the opposite then. So before you had charges to buyer, credits to seller, now you have credits to buyer, charges to seller. I know that gets a little crazy, but that's the way it's set up. So in this case, this is where you're gonna find, in the 200 section, you're gonna find your buyer's earnest deposit, or anything that they've given in advance. If they're buying a new home, sometimes you'll see a lot more there than the initial earnest deposit, because they'll give option upgrades. So that number can get pretty high if it's a new home. But, so thank you, Ben, good. So you have earnest deposit, the amount of their new loan, which is $290 in this case. They're getting a credit from the seller for their owner's policy, and everybody understands how that works on there, right? Most commonly, the seller pays for the buyer's owner's policy. The buyer pays for the lender's policy. So I'll say that one more time. The seller pays for the owner's policy, which is your new buyer. They're going to own the home now. And the buyer pays for their lender's policy, which is their new loan policy. In this case, they're getting a $1,000 credit from their agent. They're getting a credit. There's that seller concessions that they were talking about earlier. In this case, the seller's giving $4,000 credit towards their closing cost. And then they're getting a credit for the county taxes. Does everyone own a home here in Colorado? No? For those who don't, our taxes are paid in arrears here. That being said, your buyer should always have a credit on their settlement statement for the taxes. So if I'm selling my home to Ben, Ben is moving in today, Ben should have a credit from January 1st until our closing date today. And the reason why is because I was in that house for this whole year almost. Ben's going to pay taxes next year, and I should be giving him a credit for that time that I was in the home. Seller buyer, we're going to credit it, and then the seller has some settlement charges, which it looks like $25,901. They're going to pay off their mortgages. They have a first and a second loan. Sometimes you won't see anything in there. Maybe they own the home free and clear. So I think most of you will be dealing with the buyers initially. And just always kind of, thing I noticed mostly with these forms is that people get confused with the bottom lines. So when you're looking at the bottom, you want to notice that it says cash from or to. There's a little X in that bottom line. And you want to see how much money they need to bring in. You're going to take cash from. In this case, 1,000, 100 and 1,000. Does anybody have any questions on that part?
Say all that again.
Which part?
The bottom part. So is this what they have to bring to closing?
Yes,
Is that what
that's
you're
how
saying?
much money they need to bring to closing.
Okay.
Yes. And it's very confusing to people because it all looks like it all runs together. So you definitely want to look for the little X. Either it's from, because sometimes your buyer will get money back. If it's a VA loan, they put money down, it's a $1 down loan or nothing down, they're gonna get back those deposits. And they'll be startled. You see them all the time. You know, they get a form and the bottom line will say $6,000 and they're like, whoa, why do I owe money? And you'll be like, no, look, it says 2. So just make sure you're looking at that little, look for that little X on the HUD forms. Second page, like we said, is simply all charges. So paid from borrower's funds and paid from seller's funds. Anything in this column is buyer charges. Anything in the right column, remember, left is buyer, right is seller always. The seller is going to have those charges. It's all minuses. So you can go to the third page. This is my favorite page because this is really what your customers want to know. This is the page that's important to them. This shows their good faith estimate that they received from their loan officer, so what they initially said they would probably be paying. And then this shows them what they are actually paying. So this summarizes all of the charges and it shows them the increase or the decrease from what the lender quoted them. And then in the section below, it has their loan terms. If you scroll up a little, there you go. So this case, this is going to show them their loan is $290,000. It's for 30 years. It's at 3.5%. That 3.5% includes principal and interest only for that 955.55 that you see there. All of these little boxes are marked no because they don't have any loan programs like a prepay or balloon payment or anything like that. You may see, if your customer has an adjustable rate mortgage, you'll see some of that filled out. But in this case, we've just left it simple for you. And then at the bottom, the last box here shows what their total payment's going to be. So it's going to add up the principal and interest plus you have an additional monthly escrow payment of $323.59. So your total payment, Mr. Smith, is going to be $1,279.14. Now, does everybody understand what an escrow or an impound account is? Okay, so that's what the lender is going to hold for taxes and insurance. And then when they become due, they'll pay them out. Any questions on that? I'm going to assume you all know. So we're going to go to the very last page. And this is just a supplemental summary. Sometimes on that second page where all the charges are, things will runneth over. Or they need to further break stuff down. You have a question?
I actually did have a question. Are most payments include escrow accounts these days?
They do. They really do. The only time that you'll see, lenders are worried. They're worried that people aren't going to pay their taxes or insurance. Most of the time you'll see that people don't have an escrow impound account if they're paying cash. If they're paying cash for that house, you know that they can afford to pay their taxes and insurance. Or if it's a conventional loan and they put a ton of money down, then the lender will allow them, if they choose to do so, pay their taxes and insurance. But if it's an FHA, a VA, anything like that, lender's going to require, it's a requirement that they pay those on their behalf. And you know, honestly, encourage your customers to do it because it's easier on them. I know I've never had it any other way. I love it. They're paying my taxes, they're paying my insurance, I pay one payment, and I'm done. So basically, that should be their whole payment. That should be everything that they have to pay every month unless there's a homeowners association, because that's never included in the impound. So your lender's not going to ever impound for the association dues. They're always going to have to pay those. So when you're trying to figure out, like they said, how much can the customer afford, make sure, because that's a pretty common problem too when they're at the table. I notice a lot of people are like, oh darn it, I forgot about the association payment I'm going to have to make every month. You know, that can sometimes really kick it up. So yeah, this is a supplemental summary page. This simply further breaks down page 2. So So no additional numbers on this page, it just further breaks it down. And then they're gonna sign this page as well. And everybody has to sign this.
The agents plus the buyers and sellers? Or just the buyers?
Agents do not sign this one. The agents do not sign the HUD. They're gonna sign the settlement statement in Colorado. All right, so we will move on to the closing instructions, which are in the, there we go. Closing instructions are simply this. This allows the title company to conduct the transaction, disperse the money, and issue the title policy. That's all that these are saying. This is how we handle the transaction, and this is allowing us to conduct the transaction. So there's, most your title companies, they all have the same verbiage in their forms. Sometimes the formats will look a little different, but you'll find that we all are required by law to have the same information in our forms, just maybe set up a little bit differently. In this case, the only couple of boxes that we check on our closing instruction is how is the closing fee being paid, meaning the escrow fee. And in this case, there's a box on your contract also that says how that's going to be done. Most of the time that's 50-50. So that's what we've put here. And then we also have a box, number 6 is how is the seller going to receive their proceeds. And in this case, we're going to wire them electronically to the seller.
Is there a preferred method of that, or?
You know what, 90% of the time we do wire sellers' proceeds, and I do encourage that, and the reason why is because most banks will put a hold on your seller's proceeds. So even if it's, sometimes they're even putting a hold on a cashier's check now. Just with all the fraud that's going on, they're not sure if those are valid checks or not. So it's always best if they want immediate access to their money to have it wired to them. And even though it says there's a fee associated with that, most your title companies, I know that they do not charge your seller an additional fee for that. It's just part of the service. It's part of the escrow fee that we charge that we do that for them. You want to scroll down, keep going, still those closing instructions. Keep going. Continuation of closing instructions. This is the second form that you're going to sign at closing. This one says that we are agreeing to pay you set amounts as your commission. So you always want to take a gander at that and make sure that your commission is correct. That brings a good point to mind for me in that if you have any transaction fees that you'll be charging your customer, even though the seller is paying you commission, some offices will have a fee that you'll charge your customer. If you do have a fee, let your escrow agent know that ahead of time so that they can put that in the file and have that on the settlement statement for you. Don't wait until you get to the closing table and let them know. And also, go ahead.
And that would be, you're somewhere in like 199 or something,
For
I believe.
Cherry Creek? Mhm.
And you probably obviously know more than I do, but that would typically be paid. People usually pass that on to their buyers or sellers.
Typically.
And then they just need to make sure they tell you.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we don't always know, because a lot of times you guys waive the fee for people, or yes, Elizabeth in the back.
With Cherry Creek Properties, it's very, very, very important that you have a CDA and you have it signed.
That was
If
my
it
next
is not
step.
signed, you cannot disperse your check. Is everybody in? That's a policy for this office.
What's it called?
So make sure you have the
CDA.
CDA. The Commission Disbursement Authorization.
Yes.
So make sure, it has to be signed, I can't remember, but trust me, if it's not, we will not be able to give you your check, period, end of subject.
Yeah. So, and I'll be prompting you if you're closing with me, as should any escrow officer. I actually ask up front, as soon as I get the contract, that's one of my questions that I ask them. Do you have any fees? Will I be receiving a CDA, Commission Disbursement Authorization? That way I can flag my file and I know if I don't have it and we're getting close to closing that I need to bug you and say, hey, you gotta get that to me. And the reason why is because a lot of times your offices won't prepare those until the very last minute in case things change. So that's not more work for them. they can send that over right before closing. Again, this lady.
This lady back
But
there.
in Cherry Creek Properties, even if you have one, but it's not signed, it's invalid, okay? Just want to make sure you guys know.
So hold on a second. We have to send it to Cherry Creek Properties. They have to approve it. When they approve it, do they send it to you? They send it to us and we send it to you? How does that exactly work?
That, you'd have to check with your team on that. Most of the time I get them from like the office coordinators, send them on behalf of the agents to me
Okay.
signed.
Because, yeah, they have to approve it first, because,
Yes,
okay.
yes. So most commonly I do receive them from the office coordinators.
Okay, but we need to make sure that
But you
you
need to
have
make sure
them.
that, and usually your escrow officer will bug you and say, hey, I need that, and then you just need to get with their office.
Okay.
Oh.
And right here, who signs this?
You're going to sign this
At the closing?
at the closing. You're gonna sign two things. You're gonna sign that your commission is correct, and you're gonna sign the settlement statement with all the figures on it that says that you've reviewed them with your customer. Those are the only two things you're gonna sign in closing. You can go, Ben. These are general provisions. This just goes into a little more detail on how we conduct the transaction.
And you love when people read these at the closing table,
It's
right?
so wonderful when everyone reads line by line. Out of here? Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I will. Okay.
So encourage your clients only at
Yes,
the closing with
please.
Liz to read every single line.
Liz loves it when you read and you ask questions about words that I forget the meaning of. So, because attorneys write all these forms, so it's always fun.
But most of the time, people kind of glance over,
They
they'll
glance
skip
over.
over them.
Is that
So we get this before closing, right?
No, you don't. You get it at the closing table. And they may
The
ask,
whole thing we get.
you will sit there while your customers sign all these forms. But your escrow officer will explain each of them. But that being said, they may look at you for assurance, so look confident when they do. And if you don't know something, don't sweat it. Just look at the escrow officer and they will just answer the questions. We will know. We will know. Definitely. That's what we do. We're there to make you look good. So don't sweat it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This is a tax, water, sewer, and HOA agreement. This will be in every one of your closings. This one will tell you how we're prorating taxes. There's a box on the contract for that. This case, we're prorating based on the most recent mill levy, which is how most everything's done here. Not too often do you see anything other than that. And the most recent mill levy just means whatever the county is most recently assessed on the property. The next section simply states it's considered final settlement. So no party can come back on the other party after closing and say it should have been prorated differently. So if your customer is entitled to some sort of discount, know that in advance. Meaning if you're representing the seller and they have a tax exemption for being a senior citizen, whatever their discounts may be, Colorado's kind of a seller state. They lean more towards the seller. And as far as tax prorations go, if they have a discount on the property at closing, when we prorate those taxes for that offset credit debit, we're going to go with the amount that they are paying. So you're going to be charging them more if they have an exemption and we're not made aware of it. Because sometimes they have them and the county hasn't posted them yet. So always know what they're paying in their taxes. If you're the listing agent, pay attention to the taxes, okay? Because they're going to be very mad at you if we close and their exemption wasn't included. And sometimes agents will miss it. So,
And how do we know that?
it's on the county website, and if it isn't on the county website, maybe it was just implemented and the county hasn't posted it yet, so talk that through with your seller. But you'll usually know, people are pretty apt to tell you if they have a discount or not. If they're very elderly, they will. Yes, sir.
When you say discount, are you talking about a reissue rate?
No.
I missed
On
that.
the several counties will give a discount, an exemption on taxes. So say I'm supposed to pay $5,000 a year for my taxes,
Right.
but I have a senior citizen discount. So Douglas County's giving me a discount on my yearly tax amount that I pay. I don't pay full taxes.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, they don't advertise, they certainly don't want to give the discounts, but sometimes there are discounts associated with tax payments for people.
And
Yeah.
just because he
And it
brought
can
up.
be huge.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Very off topic, but he brought up a good point that I just will touch on is the reissue rate. Title companies will typically issue a reissue rate for your sellers. That can range anywhere from 0 to, gosh, how many years? Ours is until 5 years, 50% off for the first 2 years, and then 30% for years 3, 4, and 5. And that's something that we can find out, like if you email me or Liz and say, hey, I've got a seller, they think they bought like 4 or 5 years ago, can you give us the exact date and see if they're eligible for that discount? I can pull an internal O&E and get the exact date that they
Yeah,
bought that
if they're
house.
not real sure and they don't recall.
Just did one last week and the sellers were 5 years and 21 days, and it's a very strict rule. If it's not 5 years,
Game over.
Game over.
Yeah.
So even if they refinance,
If they refinance, they're good. With us, whether they closed with XYZ company or Bedrock Title, we'll issue a reissue rate with our company. And that I don't know how other companies do that, but
They're all pretty consistent.
we'll do anybody's.
I know that for your buyers will love you if you can get them any sort of discount on anything. They're already given everything they've got to get in the house.
So I do
Go
not
ahead.
have a clue what a reissue rate is. I'm
Okay,
totally lost
so
on that.
you bought your house last year and you got title insurance with it. And now this year you've decided you're gonna sell that house. So when you close on the home, you would get a discount on your title insurance policy, and it's pretty big. You would pay 50% of what you would normally pay for title insurance because you just were insured a year ago. So up to 5 years, you can get a discount of 50% off of your title insurance.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and typically, like she was saying, the seller pays for that premium, so
Yeah.
you're gonna save your sellers, it can be, $1,000 or $2,000, whatever it is, you can save them a lot of money.
Based on our example file right here, this house was $400,000 and their title insurance was $1,394. So you're gonna save them over $600
If you make sure to ask.
if they're entitled to that reissue rate.
And then one more topic, then I'll let you get back to this.
Yes.
But that's something that, we're pretty good at catching as a title company on our end. If you're gonna do a listing with us, that's something we'll catch and we'll let you know that, hey, they're eligible. We're not gonna be like, oh, they didn't notice.
Yeah, no,
We're charging them full
our title
price.
company, they
We'll let you know.
They will apply that.
So,
Discount?
yeah.
Nowadays, a lot of times it is, honestly.
Since they
because
refinance.
People don't stay in their homes as long as they used to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of is.
And then the refi boom as well.
Yeah.
'Cause even if they either they purchased it less than 5 years ago or they refinanced, either way.
What if they purchased it 10 years, but then they refinance 5?
And they're still in it.
Refinance, they're in it.
Okay,
They're-
awesome.
they're in it.
Yep, whichever one is more recent. It's gotta be with our company within 5 years.
Okay, I made a promise on
Sorry,
time, so
we'll
gotta
get
go.
back. Sorry.
So this next page, still on the water sewer agreement. Metering for the water is what this one says. Most of the time, we are holding funds for water at closing from the seller. What that means to you is, water is the only thing the title company is gonna transfer for your customers. Water can become a lien on the property if it's not paid, that's why we handle it. So we will call the water company, we will order the final bill and say, Denver Water, we are closing on August 26th and we need you to read the meter, send us the final bill. So we'll pay the final bill out of the money that we've held from the seller's proceeds, and then we'll refund the difference to the seller for whatever's left over. Your sellers may complain that it's a little too much money. Most title companies will hold 2 to 3 times what we think the water bill is going to be based on their previous readings. And the reason we do that is because I'm sure you all know, most people use more water when they're moving. They clean more, they water the yard more so that it's pretty. Most of the time their water bill is a little bit higher when they're going to move. So that's why we hold a little extra.
Did you say you refund that?
We do refund that, yes sir. So we pay the final bill, refund the difference. But just make sure that your buyers know that they need to transfer all other gas utilities, all that other fun stuff. The next section would be, all those little empty boxes are if there's a flat rate for anything like sewer. A lot of times here, sewer will be like a flat rate of $50 a year, and we have to prorate that. And then this simply says, if there's a homeowners association, we have prorated accordingly. So we have ordered a status letter from the association, and we have paid whatever fees that they show or do at closing and upfront dues. One thing to touch base with you all on with regards to the association is, when you put in the contract the sellers to provide the association documents, the seller's supposed to usually pay for that. Make sure that you're marking all those boxes on the contract for status letters, transfer fees. Don't leave any of those unmarked. Most of the time, if you're on the listing side, those CIC docs can be obtained for free on a website with your seller's password, instead of them having to pay for that. If you let your sellers know that, that's a service to them. You just save them money. They'll love you.
Yeah.
Any way you can save them money. So, our next form is affidavit and indemnity. This simply means you're indemnifying the title company. Indemnify means you're holding us harmless if either party has any construction going on the home. Every title company is going to have you sign one of these, and you're saying, we're not building a pool in the backyard, because if you are, mechanics liens can pop up, and we're issuing title insurance, so we don't want that to happen. So if your buyer or seller are building something, and we close and they've lied, they're going to be responsible for all those charges incurred. Next page. These are simply, there's one for the buyer, one for the seller. It's a limited power of attorney. It simply states that we can make any changes we need to the legal description or property address. A lot of times, whoever handled title work before the company, the previous company, they'll have a typo somewhere. It could just be an A instead of a U. It could be anything. This just allows us to make those corrections, those clerical error corrections, without bothering your customer to come back in and re-sign something.
You can't change dollar amounts, right?
I like to change interest rates sometimes. It's kind of fun. All right, bill of sale. You can stop there for a second. Bill of sale, we're going to read this at closing with the buyers and the sellers. You're simply going to sit there and compare it with your contract to make sure that we've typed it up accordingly. In this case, with the property, we are transferring 2 remote controls, a refrigerator, a microwave, a dishwasher, an oven, ceiling fans, and all lighting fixtures. So you want to make sure to pay attention as your escrow officer is reading this and that nothing's changed. Because sometimes you guys like to change things and not tell us. So we like to make sure it's right. Exclusions means these are the things the seller's taking with them. In this case, the seller's taking the clothes, washer, and dryer. Who wrote that? So they're going to be taking those. And as well, this says that they're going to leave smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. And that's it for this form, pretty much. Next item is your warranty deed. There's 2 deeds in Colorado that we most commonly use. The warranty deed and the special warranty deed. Warranty deed is the most common one that you will see. And the warranty deed just means that they're transferring the property, saying that they give no warranties to, they don't have any prior knowledge of anything that happened before them. Okay? So you're going to make sure that the names are correct at the top. We'll always ask your customers, can they double check their names? We're going to record this, so we want to make sure that their names are spelled correctly. Yes, sir?
What's the difference between a general warranty deed and a warranty deed?
So, well, special warranty deed means that they are giving you, excuse me, I'm like losing my voice.
Okay.
Special warranty deed means that they're giving you the insurance that they know that, that they're covering everything that's happened with the property from origin until now.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And this one does not. This is just a general warranty deed. They're not telling you that they're responsible for anything that's happened with the property.
It's a general warranty.
They're just
deed or
transferring it to
warranty.
you.
Okay.
Yes. So you can't come back and sue them.
I see.
You cannot.
Not this one.
Not this one.
Almost special warranty.
Special warranty deed, you can. You can say, you know, there's something faulty with the ground, I mean, it could be so many things. It could be, there's a list a mile long. But most commonly, you'll see this one because, again, most people don't own their properties from the beginning of origin until, you know, people don't stay in their homes 60 years from the time it was built until, you know, now. So most people will use this.
I noticed the builders issue special warranty deed.
Because they built the
Yeah,
property.
because they build the
They are
property.
ensuring
Yeah.
you, we built this property, we know what's going on
Mhm.
with all of it, from the dirt
So-
until now.
So anything is wrong with the property, we can sue them.
Yes. They're ensuring that structure. Your average person, I'm not gonna give you insurance on the structure, I don't have any idea what happened with the building of this property.
Do they do that because it's cheaper for them to buy it? Why would,
Is it
I mean, when a special
There's
warranty,
no cost difference.
Oh.
a special warranty deed has more liability for the seller
Yes,
and a general warranty deed doesn't?
correct.
Why wouldn't they do a general warranty deed?
Because they're not ensuring to you that they know what's happened with this property from dirt until now. They're just, I own this property for the past year, so I'm just giving you a warranty deed that I know what's happened in the time that I owned it, but I don't know what happened before me.
How about quick claim deed?
Quitclaim deed's a totally different thing. That's a whole nother subject we'll have to talk about.
I thought it was reversed.
No, the special warranty deed holds more.
I have one more quick question regarding that. What about a property you owned and you're leasing it out, you've got tenants in there, and now you want to sell it?
A property owned, and
Right,
you're
like say a
leasing
condo,
it out.
and you've got tenants in there,
Uh-huh.
but now you want to sell the condo.
Okay.
What kind of deed would you put for that?
Well, you should never have done a deed if you just have tenants in there. You still own the property.
No,
You
but you're
didn't
selling
deed it
the
to
property.
them.
You're selling the property to someone
Okay.
else, but you still have tenants in there.
Normal warranty deed.
The same, yeah.
Same thing. We use this 99% of the time. Honestly, unless someone specifically asks for a special warranty deed on the contract, because there's a spot for you to fill that in,
Right.
we will use the warranty deed.
Interesting.
You have to specifically ask for the special.
It's hard to get one.
Sometimes you'll get a little flack from the other side, yeah. Sometimes they'll say, no, we're not gonna give you one of those. Yeah. All right, any more questions about the deed?
Yes. We have one more.
Woman?
So, what's the criteria for a special?
The criteria?
Yeah, like when we,
That's kind of an underwriting question. I mean, it's just, does the seller want to give it or not? From an escrow officer perspective, does the seller want to sign a special warranty deed or not?
What does special mean?
beginning of time.
So special means that you're insuring to the buyer for anything that's wrong from dirt until now that you're selling the house. So if the home is 30 years old, you're saying, I know what's gone on with this house for the past 30 years. I'm insuring everything about it, the structure. That's, I know the girls up front here had mentioned that builders do a special warranty deed because they built the home. So they're insuring, we know, we built this structure. So you as the seller, if you did a warranty deed, you're not insuring for, you're just transferring the property. This is just a straight transfer.
You're basically just saying, I bought this property 5 years ago, I can promise you from 5 years
Yeah, that
to
is-
right now.
I've seen nothing wrong, it's good,
Nothing wrong.
structurally sound. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Thanks
good.
for explaining.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the very next form is a real property transfer. How did you miss that? Did I miss
Did
one?
I miss it?
I don't have it.
See, I probably gave you,
Did you
It's
skip,
after.
I'm the package that got pages skipped?
somebody's about to get
No,
mad
it's
at me.
after.
Is
It's after.
it?
Here we go.
Okay, all right. So, real property transfer declaration. This is the form, has anybody seen this one before?
I don't have those.
You don't have that?
Say you're the one that I got here. We've got, here, let me grab you a new packet. Liz, you can keep going, I'll grab the
Real
packet.
property transfer. Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah,
it.
sure.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. So this is the one that most commonly the escrow officer will say, Mr. or Miss Agent, would you like to go over this with your customer? This is gonna be the one that you have to explain. Okay? So, if your escrow officer is doing her job, or his job, let's be PC, they are gonna have marked this whole form for you. They're gonna fill this all out for you. It's gonna be done with the exception of 2 items on here. Okay? Number 5 and number 9. Those are the 2 that you're gonna have to explain to your customer. Number 5 and number 9. Number 9 is simple, so I'll say that first. Number 9 is just, what would they consider the condition of the home? And number 5 is saying, was any personal property transferred with the sale of this home? The reason that the theory behind this form is that the county is supposed to use it for appraisal purposes. So when you're buying a house for $300,000, in theory, the county looks at this and says, should we increase the property value and the taxes that we charge the customer because the personal items that are in the home are so substantial, so we should increase the value of this home. So you obviously don't want your customer to have their taxes increased, and you obviously don't want to make a big red flag with the county where they're looking at this home going, it's worth a lot more than we thought it was. So
Sorry.
when you're talking about number 5, and you're having them write down the value of what was left in the home, the washer, the dryer, the refrigerator, you want to put a realistic value on that. What would you sell it for on Craigslist? What would be a garage sale value of those items? They're used, right? The seller used them. You don't want to say, well, that's a $10,000 refrigerator. Is it really? Probably not. It's used. What would you get for it on Craigslist? So I've seen agents all across the board on this. Some say you should put 1% of the property value. Some say you should put 3% of the property value. You use your best judgment on that. You've shown them the home, you know what's in there. I've attached to this form transfer declaration information from the county that shows you how this form works, so you can read through this. It shows you that every 2 years, in theory again, the Colorado assessors must reappraise all the homes, which they do. You know that they do. They check the taxes, and they're supposed to take this form into consideration. And then I've also attached, along with the information for this form, I've attached because personal property is, people often don't understand what personal property consists of. We've attached personal property instructions. It kind of gives you an idea of what personal property is. What is considered personal property in the home.
Do we have?
You have that.
So we've got to put a price on all of these things.
That's left in the home.
Carpet, blinds,
Yes.
everything, and put it into here. Wow.
But
Yeah.
it's not a, nothing, like you think the kitchen and the dishwasher and the carpets were $300-400.
Yeah.
It's not like a brand
It's
new
not
carpet,
that
right?
much, really. If you have a $300,000 home, what would you say the appliances are worth that are left in there? And
But that's a lot of items to go through and go, okay, gosh, this amount, this amount.
typically, most agents will not consider the carpet and blinds and such as part. They're more of like things that you can move. I mean, are you going to pull it? Personal property definition is stuff that you can remove from the property and you can walk out the front door with. Carpet, blinds, really? Are you going to pull the carpet up? I think not. Unless you're really crazy, then you shouldn't be buying from that person, right?
Why is it on here is what I'm asking.
Well,
Why
it's
is
the
it
county.
on there?
The county is the one that determines this, but
Is this the buyer's agent fills this out?
yes. Buyer's agent is gonna help them fill this out. Now again, sir, I don't know if you heard me say that 5 and 9 are the 2 that you should be considered. Okay, all right. So the rest of it should be done for you.
Is there a section where something would drag the price down, like a hot tub?
No. County never drags the price down, they just increase the price.
So it's required to fill out number 5?
Yes, we have to record that form with the deed when we transfer the property. So that goes to the county with every deed.
We can just put any number?
You can. But
So
please read through the
1%
additional information that I gave you so that you can fully understand that form and make
Because
sure
when I
that
close my own home, we just put a number, 2,000, that's it.
there you go. There you go.
We did not even look at this list.
No, and you're not gonna have that list at closing.
Right. we
You're
don't
just
have
gonna
this.
know as an experienced agent that my customer got the refrigerator and the stove and the washer and dryer, and we're just gonna throw a number on there for it. Yeah.
Just make up.
Don't let them see you sweat. And when you panic, use the 1%
Some
rule.
sort of logical number.
My agent.
1% of the sales price.
That's gonna be my change. Do you want to touch on 9, or you already did?
I already touched on 9. I mean, 9 is pretty self-explanatory. What do you consider the condition of the property? You know, we don't know. Most of the time, most agents will stay in the middle of the road. Is it good or average? Unless it's brand new, you know? Good or average. You can keep scrolling to the customer information sheet. Most commonly, you'll see this, something like this, a customer information sheet in the packets. The reason title companies want that is, one, so we know what's the seller's forwarding address, where are we gonna send their refunds to for the utilities. And also, we like to get emails for customers and phone numbers so that we can, most commonly, people want their documents emailed to them now. After closing, they don't like to take paper. These are all tax forms. These are for the seller only, not your buyer, seller only. We're gonna ask the seller these questions. If they're all...
sorry.
No, you're okay. I think both pages are the same. If the seller answers true to all these questions, we're not gonna report them to the IRS for their proceeds. If any one of these answers are false, we report. Doesn't mean they have to pay on their proceeds. It just means we report it to the IRS. The IRS determines that, we don't. A lot of sellers will kind of panic on that. Just tell them, reassure them. Doesn't mean you have to pay taxes. It just means they have to report it.
So you do the withholding, right? If the seller moves out of state.
This is this form now. The affirmation form. If your seller cannot say that any of these affirmations are correct, they can't sign any of these things, we have to hold 2% of their proceeds and send it to the state of Colorado. Most commonly, one of these is correct. It's very rare, I will tell you, that we have one where we have to withhold money. And if your seller's really freaking out about it, they can sign the last one. And the last one says, I, the seller, affirm that I don't think I owe any tax. The IRS can figure it out. So, that's a really good one to have them sign. The rest, the next 2 pages are just instructions for that. So you keep going. And that's pretty much it. This is just a letter, that's for our Fort Docs, so we don't need that anymore.
Can I have the keys to my house? Thanks.
They're affirming.
Yeah, where's
They're affirming that one of those statements is true.
Thank you all so much for coming. Was this helpful?